Hi, I'm Rebecca Brand, and I've just walked through the history of Eureka Vacuum. I'm at the factory for Eureka, and how excited I was. When I arrived to the Eureka factory, they put a welcome sign up for me. What hospitality! With Eureka's 100-year history, we're going to walk back in time and into the future with Eureka Vacuum at this factory tour. I bet your family has a history of Eureka vacuums. They've been around for over 100 years. These are a lot of the older models. You might recognize them. This yellow model is from the 90s, and it was one of our family models in my household when I was raising my kids. And when I was a little girl, we had a canister vacuum. You might remember these. Now they still make one, and this is more lightweight than ever before. There's a vacuum bag inside. This is exactly the kind I had before I was born. My parents, if I was a good girl, got to help them on weekends vacuuming the house. It was like taking the dog for a walk in the living room. And with this hose, I could just ballet dance all around my living room floor and clean the floor. My parents were thrilled that I was doing the cleaning, and I was thrilled to be using the Eureka canister vacuum. Now, this is a modification of the canister. It's the Eureka Whirlwind, and what's special about this is you can see the dust collection. So you know if you need to empty it, and it's super easy to empty. It's smaller, but it has the same rotation and rolling around features as the canister vacuum. Take your pick. And as much history as there is with Eureka, there's also the future. Here is our current models. Each one of these upright models has its features and benefits for the family. These models are all lighter and easier to use than anything before. And this Stylus Elite model will take the particles from all the dust and debris from your floors and put them down the chute into the dust bag and lets you know when it's time to change it. You don't have to guess that anymore. The Stylus Elite is a smart home appliance, and this model is the Omniverse. It's got quick shift technology, so you can go really low and get under those couches. Also, you can take it into little sections, like if you want to clean your car, for instance. It's really portable with the way it comes apart. Now let's go into the factory and see how it's all done. I want to know what makes a vacuum a vacuum. Eureka, their motto is, "We work hard to make cleaning easy." During my visit to Eureka's home office and factories, I met this guy named Dave. Now, Dave was a user advisor. Eureka had asked for community people to become involved and understand their factories and to give them feedback so their new models of vacuums would be developed with the user in mind. So, this is me talking to user advisor Dave and getting his thoughts all about the Eureka vacuum and his experience with Eureka, so we shared our experiences together. It was fun to talk to him because he had the same kind of family memories as I did. So we talked about who had to clean up more, him or I. I got to see some really great demonstrations of their latest models. This one was an upright model that did wet messes and dry messes. It's a wet-dry vacuum. It gets up dry messes along with the wet. I got to try it out. It was really swivelly. It was fun to play with our new models. And then me and Dave compared notes. And then I got to meet Lee. Lee is a manager in the Eureka factory. So it was off for the factory tour. One of our stops was in the testing of the vacuums. Lee explained to us how each of these vacuums are running for months at a time. And what that would mean is years. If you were to mop 30 minutes a day, each of these vacuums were running for many years of use, like 6 or 7 years of use, with the whole time they ran continuously. These are the machines that test them. And I had asked, what happens if there's a problem? And Lee explained, the research and development team gets involved, they see what the problem is, they fix it, and then they retest all the vacuums. A large percent of them are tested in the quality control laboratory. I was pretty fascinated with the robot was twisting and swerving just like my hand would do if I was holding the handle. So it mimics a human hand, so the vacuum is on the floor and responsive to what the human hand would do running this vacuum. And then there was a shake test. Now that was a lot of fun. These vacuums are packed in boxes, and they gotta make sure those boxes are packed good to not have any damage during shipping. Then give them a good shake. And then we went into the factory where they manufacture the motors. Now this was one of the most fascinating parts to me. There was a very large part of the factory. All those little copper things, those are the motors. And then the motors are inspected. Those are the cubbies behind the blue. Then we got to pick up and touch the motors. And Lee explained how fast the motors rotated. And then I learned from Lee that you have to have a super high fluid rotation because that motor is going to send the air up through fans through the vacuum that creates the suction power. This is the most important part of a vacuum, are these little motors. Every one of them has to pass quality standards. This was the most important part of the vacuum. Lee explained how they were made up with many different kinds of metals depending on the physical qualities of the metals they needed to make this component for the entirety of the motor. And then it was a white glove test. We came to some finished motors and we needed to have the white gloves on to touch those. So we did. We picked them up and I was spinning mine around and around. There was no friction involved and that's what's needed. We got to further inspect them and the assembly line that those motors are made on. It's all robotic automation, which makes it efficient and inexpensive. That's why Eureka's prices have always been reasonable for their high quality of vacuums. We saw more of the factory and more of the robotics. We saw more of the conveyor belts, showing more of the different parts that go into the assembly of the vacuums, and then these really big machines that were behind me. And those are putting together the plastics and mixing the plastics that create a lot of the vacuum parts, with the robotic arms moving and taking out the parts as they were created and putting those parts on the conveyor belts. It was all very impressive. And in the end, comes out the boxes where the vacuums have been put in to be shipped all over. Even the packaging of the vacuums into these boxes for shipment had a robotic arm that sucked the boxes up with vacuum technology. That was a highlight for me because of course Eureka is going to use vacuum technology even in its manufacturing. I got a kick out of that. And onto the pallets it goes, and they are stacked to a certain height and sent down their conveyor belt. And as I looked at this part of the Eureka vacuum factory, I couldn't believe it. It was so big. It looked like vacuums were being created from infinity to beyond. The factory was huge. I just couldn't believe the size, the automation, and precision I saw in the factory that day. And of course, at the Eureka factory and showroom, they had a living room set up with a vacuum. Well, I don't know why I was surprised at all, because Eureka knows how to make cleaning easy, and they need living rooms to check it out and test it out. Of course, smart them. And I got to see even more of their showroom. And with Eureka's silence technology, when you're vacuuming, you don't have to wake the baby. It's not loud anymore. Their R&D development department has figured it out to make vacuuming quieter than it's ever been before. Eureka! So for over a century, from the past and now to the present and in the future, Eureka is the brand for families. I'm so happy to have had this factory tour. I hope you found it fascinating, because I sure did. I'm Rebecca Brand. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to get notified of my next video. And let's keep making great recipes in life. And today's recipe was how to make a vacuum. Now you know. See you next time. I'm off to go have some wonderful dinner with my friends I made at Eureka. Bye now.